Welcome to the Be Ruthless Show, where we have the conversations that other people don't, the conversations that other people won't. I'm your host, Sam Ruth, and I'm ready to make a lot of noise and disrupt things, ruthlessly. Thanks for being here today. Now let's get to it. Welcome back to the Be Ruthless Show. I'm your host, Sam Ruth, and joining me today is Dr. Kristin Wild, an award-winning holistic health practitioner. She has a PhD in metaphysical science and holds a diploma in applied psychology. She's the creator of the therapy modality called awareness therapy and founder of the modern health solution. She's best known for helping people heal from chronic physical and mental conditions that are thought to be incurable. Don't we all need that?
Yeah, we do. We all need it.
Thank you so much for being here. So many things that people say there's just no hope. So which do we start with, and how did you get into all of this?
Well, I did not choose to be this person.
It chose you.
I love it. I love it so much. It's such a gift. But also the experience that I went through, you wouldn't have thought at the time that it was a gift. So I myself went through an autoimmune condition called rheumatoid arthritis. I had a 10-year experience with that, of being told everywhere I went that it was hopeless. It was only going to get worse. I had to be on these terrible medications. And it was so isolating, so frightening. And it's what I call the dark night of the soul. It's the ultimate test in who you are as a person and how you show up. And so it was a really deep experience. And at the same time, throughout my whole life, I had experienced chronic anxiety. I lived with a chronic anxiety until I was 37 years old. So it was just this catch-22 because here I was, very physically ill, and then my nervous system was just shot because it was constantly in this fear state. So yeah, it was one thing after another. I spent over $150,000 of my own money trying anything and everything I could to heal, whether that was like through psychotherapies or physical therapies, spiritual therapies, all the therapies. And some of them kind of worked. But the thing is my foundation wasn't set. My foundation was shaky. And so it didn't matter what I did because I didn't have that solid foundation. Of course, this is hindsight. At the time, I had no idea. I was just doing whatever I could do. And, it's just one of those things. Like, none of us knew any better. We're just stumbling through the dark right now. And some of us have found a flashlight, and some of us have been able to flip the switch on. And so we can see the whole picture in different aspects. So through my experience, I really hit rock bottom at about the 10-year point, where I was told I needed 4 joint replacements. My organs were shutting down, and I was like had rashes all over my body, because at this point I was also diagnosed with lupus and Graves' disease. I weighed like 95 pounds. I shuffled everywhere I walked. I couldn't sit or stand or lie down for longer than 5 minutes. It was just like a living nightmare. And that's when I finally broke down and surrendered, because I couldn't hang on anymore. I just couldn't. And I began to pray. I just said, source, universe, God, whatever you want me to call you, please help me. Like, please send me answers. If I'm meant to overcome this, send me the answers, please. Or, just take me. Like, I just can't do this anymore. And it was amazing. This feeling, this energy came up through my whole body. I'll never forget it. I'll never come back from that. And I just knew that I was going to start healing from there. And I did. I started finding answers, and they started just coming in what just seems like a miracle after miracle now.
So it's so interesting. I had back surgery a little over 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going through some acting up currently. I thought they were going to say I needed surgery again. I don't. But it's just so interesting. I've had anxiety my whole life. They go together. I have a trip coming up this week, and the heating pad, like the ointments, all of the things that you do that the rest of the world doesn't see, that go along with having to live life, like the things other people just travel. It's not just before and after. I know I'm going to come back in more pain. So other people don't see that, and they just, oh, it's your back, it's no big deal. But anxiety rises. I know I will come home and need to heat, ice, all of the things. So I want these healing remedies. I want to know personally, and everyone listening wants to know, because whether it is anxiety, depression, arthritis, the rest of the world, there are so many people who say they're exaggerating. They're making it up. People question whether it's real.
Oh yeah, I went through that experience so much. People like, you don't look sick, until I really did, until they were like, oh man, like you've been living like this? Like, yeah. And that's the thing is, it's this full-time job. There's a lot of mental energy that goes into navigating chronic illness, whether that's mental or physical. It's usually both. And that's the thing is, it really does stem from the mind. That's where it starts, because our mind, like thoughts literally become things. We can look at this as a spiritual point of view, which is valid, but we can also look at it as the scientific point of view. How does the brain operate? Well, when we're having these thoughts, our thoughts either are producing neurochemicals that create health, or they're producing neurochemicals that create illness. And it's like when you just break it down so simply, it's like, oh yeah, like so that's the biggest thing, is like there isn't just one piece to the puzzle, because it took a lot to get here, to get to the point where we are dealing with chronic illness, chronic anxiety, mental anguish. It takes a lot to get there. So there's multiple pieces to the puzzle, but there are a few things for sure that is like, this will get you on your way. It will start changing things for you. One is awareness. That's why I created that therapy modality. It was just like, it stems from Carl Rogers, person-based therapy of, awareness in and of itself is curative. I found that really interesting. And so the more I think about it, it's like, yes, and sometimes you need an outside source. Sometimes because you don't know what you don't know. And if we haven't been taught these things, how could we have been taught these things? They didn't know. It's like this pattern of innocence really is like, you just don't know until you know. And sometimes you need that outside information from an outside source, whether that's reading a book, coming across a podcast, whatever it is, joining a program. It can come from so many places. You can overhear someone in a coffee shop. You have no idea where the information is going to come from. But when you clue your awareness into something, like, okay, I'm aware I have anxiety. How is anxiety feeling in my body? Like true awareness, instead of trying to push it away and ignore it, it's really paying attention to, what is it telling me? Because our bodies talk to us. And it's like, what is it telling me? What's off here? Why do I feel this way? And it's not, you don't even have to do anything about it at first. It's like just being like, what's going on here? I would love to be open to answers. And then your mind will go on that track. Now your mind is going to be looking for those answers around and bringing in from the environment.
It's so funny because old me, and I don't know if you went through this, old me would be laughing at this conversation and going, these two are nuts. Like they are out there. Like I was very reality based. This would, and then I reached that point where I was in so much pain, like you said, that I would have tried anything. If you told me to stand on my head, and eat grapes upside down, I would have done it if you said it. And I don't want people to have to be in that much pain now, right? I want people to say, I'll try this now, because who wants to hurt that much?
Well, yeah. And that's it. It's like, learn from my mistakes. Like, but the thing is that's entrainment, right? We are born into it. Our minds are entrained into certain belief systems. And when something else comes in and it makes us question those belief systems, it feels very foreign. And people do not like change. That's the number one thing. It doesn't matter. It's like, I'll take the short term comfort and gain and deal with the long term pain because I'm scared of change. And I'm speaking from myself. Like, this is every human being. We just are like that. Because our brains take up so much of our energy, our brain naturally wants to just create, like, it wants to know what's happening next, because then it doesn't use up as much energy. It's just genetics. It's like what we've been passed down. But now we're living in a different paradigm than we've ever lived in before, ever, with this advancement in technology. And we bring in so much more information than we ever did before, ever. And so now we're starting to be able to put pieces together in ways that we couldn't put pieces together before. So yes, you're absolutely right. I am not people's first choice typically. Usually when people get to me, they are desperate. And which I actually don't mind, because when someone is in that mental state, they are ready to do whatever it takes, because it is going to be work. When you decide you're going to heal, you're going to go through some stuff.
Right.
You are.
Same with me, right? Emotional stuff.
Yeah.
And it's true. We have to be willing to learn. Nobody can learn from my mistakes. We have to go through it ourselves and go and get there. But I really want people, I was the person who had my planner. I had it mapped out, the unknown, listening to the universe, paying attention to the signs. I get it. If anyone listening is like, these ladies are out there. I want people to at least know that I would think I was out there too at one point, that it was a shift for me to learn to slow down, to learn to listen to my body, to recognize that those are clues. And it's just so funny. I did a recent article about these things, about these are clues. My anxiety is a gift. It's telling me things. We have to recognize that is awareness.
Yes. And that's your body saying no. So anxiety is your body saying no. So it's like really learning how to listen to our bodies. And so there's different brain centers throughout our body, because we think about our main like brain in our head, and that's going to operate our whole system. Well, there's also a neural system in your heart, in your solar plexus, in your throat. And so it's like, and yet we ignore those pieces because they were so, up until really now, it was like too foreign of a concept. Like you're talking about, it seems really out there, but now science is advancing to the point where it's like, okay, there's something going on here. Quantum physicists, they're like, you know what we have left to study? Consciousness. Like, who is that? Like, why does it feel like there's two of me in here? And it's like, who's arguing with me? It's this thing. And so, it's at the point where science is actually, if you look it up, you can find those answers. There is measurements of our electromagnetic fields around our body showing that we are far beyond our bodies, and it's like, and just even to prove it, like in an instant, is where does a thought come from? Can you crack someone's brain open and find a thought? Like, no, you can't see a thought, but yet, you have them. They're constantly spinning around. So where is all this information coming from? It's like, so it's just, we don't really need to know exactly how it works, because trust me, I've been studying this for the last almost 2 decades now. And the more I know, the more I'm like clueless. It's like every time you open up a new discovery, there's an infinity of questions arises. So it's like, okay, let's just suspend disbelief and say we are spiritual beings living in a body, having a spiritual experience. Like, we chose to come here as spiritual beings and have new experiences. And so what we're really learning is to listen to our truth, like ourselves, our inner self. And so anxiety is when we ignore that. If we learn to listen, we're not going to have that experience.
That's my life.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is a really easy technique. And if you just use this one technique, your life will be so much better. And trust me, I had to learn this one the hard way. So, so it's really easy. You just sit there and you say, okay, what is a yes for me in my body? So sit in your body. And it's like, what does a yes feel like in my body? For me, and it's going to be different for everybody. So I'll just tell you what it is for me. You might feel it in your heart. You might feel it in your throat. You might feel it in your solar plexus. You can feel it all over the place. So for me, when it's a yes, I feel ease. I feel lighter. My shoulders drop. I breathe clear. This feels good. This is a yes. A no to me is in the solar plexus. Oof. My solar plexus is on fire. So a good example is what I went through to really learn this one. And you can learn it through so many different things, but I had to learn it in multiple different areas of life. So more recently, dating. So I'm a solo mom and I decide I'm going to try online dating. I've never done this before. And and so I went on a few dates and I decided I'm listening to me, because that's something I really ignored when it came to that, like romantic relationships. I would ignore myself and be like, oh, I don't know if I can trust how I feel. And so what I did was, on the dates, I would just listen to my body, and the date would be going fine. The conversation was fine. And then like I could feel it in my solar plexus. It's a no. And so then afterwards, they'd ask me out again or whatever. And I'd say, you know what? I just had this feeling and I'm going to go with it. And you're perfectly lovely. Everything was great, but I'm just going to stop it here because I know there isn't going to be a future in this relationship. And the way they responded showed me immediately
that you were right.
I was right. So it's learning how, so that was like more of like a deeper one, but you can learn how to trust yourself in the smaller day-to-day thing. Like, hey,
is this at all like similar to muscle testing?
It is so much like muscle testing, except for you're your own center. You don't need it, right? Like this is how it's like, is this a yes? You feel it in your body.
Right.
Is this a no? You feel it in your body.
Okay.
And because your body knows things before your mind does. Because we have fascia that covers our whole body. And it is like this system that picks up stimulus from our environment. So we are literally picking up other people's energy. And so that's the part where it's like, what? Yes. So remember, we're talking about our electromagnetic fields go way out beyond our bodies. So when you're connecting with someone, you can feel their electromagnetic energy. And so like, to get a little like, not too scientific, but there's something called quantum entanglement. And it's now been proven. In fact, the main scientist has been studying it, just won the Nobel Prize for it. So quantum entanglement this is how you and I can be connected over long, long distances. And so quantum entanglement is, say, you have electrons that are connected energetically, and one can be facing up and one can be facing down. And there is no distance that they can be apart that they don't affect each other. They could be on opposite ends of the universe. So this electron flips and goes negative. This one goes for a downspin. This one will flip and go into an upspin at the exact same time. So there's no time or space difference that will interfere or affect that. They're quantumly entangled. And so we're really on the precipice of understanding this and learning what that is, but how does that affect us in living day-to-day life? This is where manifestation comes from, synchronicities come from, all of these experiences, and it gets to the point where you really learn to trust you and you're responding to what's in your highest interest. Like, this feels good. And you start really doing that all the time. You'll notice so many synchronicities and so many miracles that they just become normal life. It's like, oh yeah, that's life.
And you can have connections, whatever you want to call it, with certain people. I am daddy's girl. Everyone who has followed and is a part of my journey knows this, but in bizarre ways also, like across the country, not talking for days, I will be able to say something's not right. I need to call my dad right now. And medically, something will have happened. And
yeah,
my mom hasn't given me a clue. My brother didn't text me and say, call dad, and this is years ago before we had texting and technology. I can just feel if something's not right.
Yeah.
And I'm not that as connected in the same way with my mom, like where I would know, call mom, so it's like that. And
yeah, that's quantum entanglement. So your energy is entangled, and sometimes you love it. And sometimes you entangle your energy with another human being to learn some really deep lessons. And and then if you decide to exit that relationship, like I've learned all the lessons I want to learn here and I'm going to move on, that's where I know you talk about grief a lot. That's where grief comes in, because you are still entangled. And it takes a while to bring your energy back to yourself. So that's why you have to go, like if you're really in love with someone and you know that this relationship has to end, or it ends not by your own choice, it takes time to disentangle that energy.
even I right now have friends, lifelong friends that go separate ways, where one is like, why? We've known each other forever.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a great way to look at it, because we don't talk about grief enough. We don't talk about the ending of things. I did an episode last week and I talked about, I think that the best way to describe what I do, and I have always done this, no matter what age, I work with people that are going through difficult transitions, whether that's high school to college, whether that's the end of a job, the end of a relationship. I think that's what grief is. I think it is major transitions.
Yes, I see it all the time. And for myself, it's like, and it was one of those things because it was never talked about, but then just seeing enough people and working with enough people, I was witnessing like, oh my gosh, you're going through the stages of grief. That's what I was going through, and really being able to articulate that. And when people understand the stages of grief, they don't feel like they're going crazy. Because it can be very crazy going through the experience of grief, and you just want it to go away. But the only way out is through. You have to go through it.
1,000%. And I say all the time, we live in this world that wants to sweep things under the rug that are uncomfortable. We have to feel the feelings. Doesn't mean it's easy or fun, but that is the way through. Like you just said, there are some things, some grief state, like moving or changing jobs, that you can get through and be yourself again. And there are other losses where, like, my learning is different. Losing my husband makes me feel like I learn differently now. I could not go back to school and get the grades I got, because I function in a different way. And I've had to learn differently. What do you say to your clients and people you work with dealing with things that the world really does minimize? There are a lot of people, you talked about lupus. Lupus is very misunderstood, but also mocked. Like I have clients who are they're not believed. They're just not believed.
Yeah. So that's one of the reasons why I created the program I did. Like I said, it was like, I was an entrepreneur before. And it wasn't until I started getting healthy and finding answers, and people started asking me like, can you help me with this? And I'm like, I'll try. And then, and then it was like, okay, you need to be doing this. Because of that, the community piece is so important. That is actually the thing is such a pleasant surprise for me. And is that community piece for people, how much they were craving that, how much they needed that, to be believed and cared about and supported without being questioned whatsoever. People come in and they're like, okay, do I need to send you my blood work? I'm like, no, you don't feel good? Okay, that's all I need to know. Let's go. Like, it's like, I believe you. Why would you make this shit up? And people don't realize the mental anguish people live through is a full-time job on top of just trying to live a normal life. It is absolutely terrible. And then especially when it's like dealing with chronic pain and then the anxiety, and it's one thing after another, and it ends up snowballing and getting worse and worse and worse because they don't have answers or like any sort of path to follow. And so that's exactly it. It's like, the isolation piece is real. I've worked with so many people with fibromyalgia too. People they get told it's in their head. It's like psychosomatic. It is not. It is in the nervous system. Oh my gosh. Your nervous system, that's all over your whole body. And so this is the biggest thing is that people can start actually believing themselves that's the biggest thing. So when I work with anybody, so in my volunteer work, I've worked with women and children mostly in the last 20 years, helping them escape abusive situations, whether that's physical or mostly psychological. And it's the same pattern with them as it is with helping people overcome illness. Often people that have illness are also dealing with a relationship like that too. Not always, but a lot of the time. And so what's happened is they've given up their power to the world over and over and over, and they didn't even know that was an option to not do that. That's how they were raised. That's how they feel. And again, it's not villainizing anyone. Whoever raised them, they didn't know any better. So it's like, it's like to go around. Let's not worry about it. Let's not worry about what other people think or do or say. It's like, it's really getting internal. How do I feel? What do I think? Who do I want to be around? And yeah, you're going to lose a lot of friends. Your whole life's going to change. You're going to learn differently. Everything is going to be different. And that's where the scary piece comes in. But we do hit a point, everyone does, where they're like, I am more afraid of things staying how they are than I am of whatever else is out there. Like, anything is better than this. And that's actually the perfect point, because from the breakdown comes the breakthrough. And so you need the breakdown to be like, okay, I give up. Somebody help me.
I say this about grief, about mental illness, about whatever. Like, people do not pretend and reach out for help. People don't fake and ask for help, for attention. Like, we don't pretend we're not okay.
No.
Like,
that's
if
very rare.
Cry for help, that's real. People push through and pretend they're okay. We don't pretend we're not okay.
No. And that's the thing, is like, it is very rare. Some people do get caught in the psychological loop of the pity. They love the pity, but they don't act like that. It's different. You can tell when someone is constantly caught in that loop where they like the victimhood. They usually are dealing with a personality disorder. So there's a lot of other things going on along with that you can tell, okay, this person mentally, things just aren't going well. And so if someone is like physically ill and they're trying their best to live, or mentally unwell, like, and that's the thing too, the mentally unwell is also physical, because it's our brains, and it's like, it's what's going on in the brain, and that can be changed. It just can be kind of tricky because you're using the tool to fix the tool. This is why sometimes you need an outside person.
They definitely go together, but learning to just say, I'm having a rough day, or I'm not okay. If someone says that to you, that's enough. That's all you need to hear. If anyone, and if you say that, that's enough. And if you don't get a response that's supportive, go to someone else. Like, these are not the right people. Exactly.
And so that's the biggest thing, is if you keep spending time with people that are treating you that way, then it gets to the point where you're participating. Once you have that awareness, because you don't have the awareness of what's going on until you do. But it's like, I think after some people after listening to this, they're gonna be like, oh, like it's like it's like, oh, I don't have to live like that. Like, no. It's funny, like people say, oh, it's like, oh my gosh, it's so nice to be able to talk like this. I'm like, there isn't anyone I spend time with that I don't feel safe to talk like this. And that took a long time. There was a point in time where I felt so alone and I had nobody to talk to. So it's this process of like, okay, what am I going to turn to that feels good? Every single relationship needs to be mutually beneficial in some way. Equal energy. If someone is siphoning your energy constantly, they're not your people. They're just not your people.
I had a client last week that was not okay. And I choose my clients interview and choose me, but I also am not going to be disrespected or mistreated. Usually you work through it, but if it persists, we always have a choice. So people make mistakes and you can work through them, but if people are mistreating you, you can walk away.
Yeah. And that's the thing is we are okay. Like, real friendship is we support each other when the other one needs, right? So it's not like you just abandon people when they're having a hard time, but look at their heart. That's what matters. How do they show up? What are their actions in the world? And yeah, they're going to have a hard time. Be like, I am in like a fear cycle right now. I feel depressed. I have anxiety. Okay. How can I support you? And then when you go through that too, you go to them and say, I need support right now. So that's a mutually beneficial relationship. And sometimes you're both happy and sometimes you're both going through the shit. But it's like, how are you still treating people? Just because you're having a tough time yourself doesn't mean you get to project that onto another person. That just causes more harm to everybody, including yourself. It's like people don't want to be around people that are constantly in a negative state and and projecting all of their difficult emotions onto other people. We have to learn how to navigate our own difficult emotions and to articulate them in a way that isn't causing harm to another person. Because otherwise we're like lightning, like it builds up, it builds up, it builds up, it's bottling up, you don't know what to do with it. Oh, there's my kid, rah! And it's like you end up being lightning and striking the people that are closest to you. So it's really learning new
and
skills.
You can ask those people and they'll say, I have the biggest heart in the world. I would not, but it's though they don't get to be the judge, right? We have to ask the rest of the world, how are you being treated?
Yeah. Well, and that's it too. So if you, really good way of looking at it is, okay, when you're talking to yourself, it's like, okay, I have good intentions. I don't want to cause harm to any people. I'm not interested in that. And I just want to live a nice and peaceful life. And that's how I want to live. And you go out in the world and you behave that way. And then you're getting reactions from other people that are negative. Then you can say, okay, I showed up there. I didn't say anything negative about anybody. I didn't put anyone down. All I did was articulate what my needs were. And they reacted very strongly in a negative way. Was that me? It's not personal. Nothing to do with you. So when you go out and you have good intentions in the world, you're going to make mistakes, 100%. We're human until we're not. And we've seen some enlightened beings around. We're not them. And so, it's like, okay, I'm human. So if you make a mistake, then you just do what you can to make up for it and forgive yourself and move on. Because when you're going through the world with good intentions, then let yourself off the hook, like don't be so difficult or there's no need to go into shame or guilt about things when you have good intentions, because when you do make a mistake, it's truly a mistake. You weren't doing something because you wanted to cause harm to another person. So if that's you as a type of person, then expect the same from other people. And if you're not getting it, don't expect them to change. We don't need to teach anyone anything. If someone's not asking, they don't want to know.
And that's a great point. How are you walking into situations? so many times people are walking in with guards up or with expectations. And if you're just walking in with an open heart and no expectations, the outcome can be extremely different than if you're coming to the table prepared to defend or prepared to attack.
Exactly. And then you'll just start being like, okay, well, every time I spend time with this person, I don't feel good after. It's like, so it's just awareness around that. And it's like, oh, but every time I spend time with this person, I feel amazing. We laugh together and we fill each other's well, right? It's like, we're problem solving and like, actually being constructive and creative together and talking about interesting subjects, and afterwards you're like, I feel better. Like I feel lighter. And so you want to spend as much time with people like that as possible and as little time in the other way. Because where you direct your energy, those people that are really in that state and they want your energy from you, that is depleting your energy. And if you're dealing with a chronic illness, chronic anything, or difficult time, you don't have that energy to spare.
And I will share this personally. A lot of my clients who have dealt with loss, we've discovered this. It's difficult in the early stages to think about letting new people in, but it's important to find those people who can let you know you'll get there. I needed, I hate the W word. I needed widows further along to let me know I would get there and that I wasn't crazy and all of the things that, and the ones that I'm further along need me to kind of show them, even though we have our own path, like to show them the steps and the breadcrumbs along the way. Still to this day, it's less intense for me now, but those people, my new people, I don't have anxiety spending time with in any way, shape, or form. And my friends and family who knew me with Jim, who I love and who would do anything for me, right? They love me to, they still unintentionally compare when they see like, you're looking good today, or like they bring some level of analysis that the people who didn't know me then don't. And so it's always there. And it's not, in the early years, it was extremely intense for me. And I would struggle to even get to events. It's not like that for me now as I'm further along, but it's there. And I tell them and they know, but that exists. So there's these two worlds that I have. And all of my clients, I do not think there's anyone who doesn't have that piece. So
totally. Yeah. It's just interesting. Like the human relationships, they're so interesting when we really actually start to look at it and what it means for us.
So I would say like, even that's not even these are people who are near and dear to me and mean so much. And there's nothing bad. There's no, but it does require a little bit more energy and we could be doing my favorite thing in the world. This includes my parents, my brother, like my favorite people. So I know that going in, and I have to like devote a little bit more mental energy to those situations than I do with people who I've known less time. It's just, and so I think paying attention to that and knowing, like recognizing, like we have our energy tanks. And so like I prepare a little bit more time before and after so that I can do those things because I love those people. And I still have that world. So anyone who, it doesn't have to be these are people I can't have in my life, but we can plan and use our energy tanks. It's like Weight Watchers points.
Yes, exactly.
Spread your points around differently and still have them. But I really do have to use my awareness and think about it and have that part of my life so that I go and so that I'm there. But in those early years, it was difficult. And to anyone dealing with grief or anxiety or those things, it doesn't mean you can't do those things. It means you learn how to do those things in different ways, and it gets different and easier over time. And you'll get there.
Yeah, it's like providing safety, right? If you haven't had that feeling of safety or security, then it can be really daunting meeting new people or having new experiences, because it's like you're so raw. And yeah, and it's like, but that's exactly it. There's no rush. And that's the thing, is like people just want to like, I need to get through this. And it's like, you never know. Like, it's like, you could think you're totally like, I am through this, I have mastered this. And then all of a sudden it hits you in a wave again. You're like, oh my gosh, like, here I am again. And so it's like, this is human life. Like, human life is not easy. It's never, ever going to be. What we do is develop the skills that we can handle way more. We have way more resilience. So something that would have really gotten to you, say 10 years ago, now you're just like, man, it's so easy to deal with. But there's always going to be new challenges and new things that we're facing. And part of it is just accepting that. When we accept that, yeah, life is going to be challenging, not all days are going to be good days, then it ironically makes life easier.
Yeah.
Because we're not looking for it. Yeah,
right.
We're not looking for that perfection, because it doesn't exist. It's not an option as a human being. We'll wait till we're dead for that.
A book came out recently, or a book called Dear Younger Self. And one of the things I wrote in there, like, no one ever told me that there's no such thing as perfect. If only I had known that for the beginning of my life. How do people find you and get in touch with you?
Oh yeah. Probably our website is the best way, modernhealthsolution.com. And if you go on Instagram, the handle's Modern Health Solution, and that's where I am personally. So if someone wants to get in contact with me, then Instagram is the best way, because then I will send voice notes, and I love to talk with people. To me, it's like, I just love it. It's the most precious part of what I do, is actually interacting with people. And even just being able to help put them in a direction, that a different trajectory than where they are. Because as you know, like, if you just change something by 1 degree, it changes the trajectory for people.
Any last words, final thoughts?
I would just say that, we're all doing our best. We all are. And it's like we can look at other people, and it's like, yeah, easy for you to say you've got it all together. And it's all appearances. Nobody has it all together. There'll be certain aspects of things that we mastered and are very good at. And then you can be a total mess in another area. So it's like, just really knowing that we are all living this human life, and the best thing we can do is be there for each other in community and really start having these open conversations.
Thank you so much for your time and your knowledge. Everyone connect with Dr. Kristin Wild at Modern Health Solutions. Is that correct?
Yeah, there isn't an S. I'm like, big mistake. I shouldn't have made something that you can put an S on. But
Modern Health Solution.
Yeah.
And I'll put that in the show notes. If you're driving, don't write it down. It is there. Thank you again so much. Until next time, everyone, always be ruthless. Thanks so much for listening today. Your support means everything to me, truly. If this podcast resonates with you, please do me a favor and join in the Ruthless movement by making some noise and doing one of these 4 things. Subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Tell a friend so we can break stigmas even faster. Leave a review so people can see what you think of the show. And last, if you want to learn more about me and be a part of the Grief Hab community, please head on over to the Facebook group. We'd love to have you. Thanks again for spending your time with us, and see you next week.